Imagine you wake up one morning and this billionaire entrepreneur,
Mm.
famous for rockets, electric cars,
Hmm.
he's launched an entirely new political party.
Yeah.
What does that even mean for a country already grappling with, well, deep political divides?
Mm.
That's precisely the fascinating territory we're charting today. Our mission in this deep dive is essentially to pull out the most important insights from this really comprehensive, almost doctoral level analysis of this new political venture.
Yeah.
The America Party, they're calling it, announced July 2025 by Elon Musk himself.
Hmm.
We're going to look at the conditions that allowed it to emerge, its ideology, which is kind of surprising, its goals, and crucially, what it could mean for American democracy.
And what's really striking about this report, I think, is that it's not just about a new name on the ballot.
Okay.
It gives us a pretty solid framework for understanding how any new party tries to challenge a system that's so deeply, two-party.
Right, entrenched.
Exactly. We'll be looking at the structural barriers, the likely impact, and what it signals about American politics right now. It really makes you ask, is this a real path to, say, a multipolar system, or is it something else entirely?
And we're here to help you shortcut your way to being genuinely well-informed on this. We've got some surprising facts, insights that hopefully cut through all the noise. So let's get started.
Let's do it.
First off, let's set the stage a bit. What's the political ground like? What allowed something like the America Party to even, sprout?
Yeah.
The sources talk about a specific political conjuncture, like a unique mix of conditions and pressures.
Absolutely. And at its heart, you're looking at a profound crisis of representation. The polling data, well, it paints a really stark picture.
I'll start.
A 2023 Pew Research survey showed 63% of Americans have little, maybe no confidence in the political system. Same number aren't satisfied with the candidates available.
Wow.
And a full 25%, a quarter, feel like neither major party represents them. Then a 2024 Gallup poll found 58% think a third major party is actually needed.
Okay, and this is where it gets really compelling for me. Musk's explicit critique, this whole uniparty idea,
Hmm.
he calls it corrupt and bankrupt, says Democrats and Republicans are basically indistinguishable on the big stuff, like spending and the national debt.
Right, fiscal issues mainly.
Exactly. He says our country needs an alternative
Hmm.
so that the people actually have a voice. It feels like a direct pitch to that group feeling, well, politically homeless.
It is. However, this brings up an important point. While lots of people want an alternative, it often comes from this negative frustration.
Not a positive vision.
Not necessarily a coherent positive one, no.
Yeah.
As political analyst Nathan Gonzalez put it, people have different ideas of what the solution is, even though they all agree on the problem.
Ah.
And that makes building a unified base, incredibly tough for any new party.
Then there's this thing the sources call the polarization paradox. We're more polarized than ever, right?
Yeah.
Not just on issues, but emotionally.
Definitely. Since 1994, the share of partisans holding very unfavorable views of the other party more than doubled.
Wow.
And many see the other side as an actual threat to the nation's well-being. It's intense.
So this hyperpolarization, it's like both an opportunity and a barrier.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, it fuels that uniparty critique, right? Because anytime the two parties cooperate, it can be framed as a betrayal.
Giving an opening to an outsider.
Exactly. But it also creates intense negative partisanship. Voters are just laser focused on defeating the party they hate most.
Which leads to that strategic voting problem.
Precisely. Voting for a third party feels like a wasted vote that might accidentally help your worst enemy win. It's a real psychological hurdle.
So putting it all together,
Mm-hmm.
the system is kind of screaming for a third option.
Yeah, the demand is there.
But it's also structurally built to crush it.
It really is.
Which brings us to the independent voter. This seems like a huge demographic shift. In 2023, independents hit 43%, tied for a record high.
That's right. Numerically more than Democrats or Republicans.
And who are these independents?
They're largely moderate. About 60% self-identify that way. They might trust Democrats more on, say, healthcare, Republicans more on the economy.
Leading to split-ticket voting?
Often, yes.
Yeah.
And while they're obviously a prime target for a third party, here's the interesting bit. Nearly equal shares lean towards one of the two major parties.
Ah, so they're not pure independents.
Not entirely. And they tend to sort of rent their political allegiance election by election. The insight here isn't just that they exist, it's that their main goal often seems to be forcing the existing parties towards the middle.
Using their vote as like a pressure valve.
Exactly, rather than looking to build a whole new institutional home.
And finally, on the landscape, traditional coalitions seem to be fracturing.
Mm-hmm.
The 2024 election, for instance, showed Donald Trump making some pretty significant gains with minority voters. Hispanic voters near parity, black voter support nearly doubled, Asian voters up too.
Right. And the analysis suggests this isn't necessarily about people switching parties wholesale, but more about different turnout patterns, new voters coming in. It definitely indicates loyalties are weakening.
So what's the big picture takeaway from that fracturing?
It creates an opening potentially for a third party to build these niche coalitions based on specific cross-cutting issues rather than just broad identity groups.
Like uniting. Who? Give me an example.
Well, maybe fiscally minded Hispanic entrepreneurs with, say, pro-Second Amendment black voters, people
Yeah.
who don't fit neatly into the old boxes.
Okay.
And this fits right into the America Party's stated strategy, targeted disruption in those very narrowly divided districts.
Okay, let's dive into the party itself then. What exactly is the America Party? How did it start? What's it stand for? Because the sources are clear, it's not your typical centrist thing.
That's absolutely right. Its origin story is quite specific. It basically grew out of a very public, very nasty feud between Elon Musk and former President Trump in mid-2025.
A feud? What was the trigger?
The immediate spark was Musk's really strong opposition to Trump's one big, beautiful bill, a tax and spending package. Musk called it fiscally reckless, a disgusting abomination, said it would add trillions to the deficit.
Wow. So it came out of a fight within the conservative movement, essentially.
You could definitely frame it that way, yes. And the sources say its core ideological points flow directly from that conflict.
Okay, so what are those core tenets?
First, really aggressive fiscal conservatism, just an unwavering opposition to government spending, debt, what they call waste and graft.
Makes sense, given the origin. What else?
Second, radical deregulation. Musk sees government regulation as like the #1 barrier to innovation.
Okay.
He's talked about a regulation removal department, praised leaders like Argentina's President Milei. It's particularly strong when it comes to environmental regulations.
Right. And the third?
Third is free speech absolutism. He frames it as the, quote, bedrock of a functioning democracy. Although how that's applied on his platform X has definitely drawn criticism for being, well, inconsistent.
Okay, inconsistencies aside, that's the third pillar. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The sources label its ideology techno-populism. Can you break that down? What does techno-populism actually mean in practice? What policies come with it?
Sure. Techno-populism, it's this blend. It combines that anti-establishment populist kind of rhetoric.
The people versus the elite stuff.
Right. With a very technocratic belief that, complex problems can be solved usually by elites using technology, innovation, data-driven efficiency.
Okay, so populist rhetoric, technocratic solutions. How does that translate to policy, economics?
On economics, deficit reduction, definitely. Radical tax reform, maybe even eliminating income tax, pro-deregulation, as we said, and notably pro-Bitcoin and cryptocurrency.
Interesting. What about technology, climate, defense?
They push for expanding AI and national defense. On climate, Musk says it's urgent, but he's skeptical of what he calls feel-good solutions.
So what's his answer?
Massive scalable tech. Think electrification of transport, clean energy production, gigaton-level carbon capture, big engineering projects, though his more recent political alignments have led some to say he's backpedaled a bit on climate focus.
What about the social and cultural side? Foreign policy. These often hit home for voters.
Socially, staunchly pro-Second Amendment, strong opposition to wokeism, which kind of ties into his criticism of open border immigration policies.
And the free speech absolutism fits here too.
Yes, that's presented as a cultural cornerstone. Despite, again, those accusations about how X operates, amplifying some views, suspending critics.
And foreign policy?
Distinctly isolationist, sort of America first, advocating withdrawal from NATO, the UN. He's also cultivated a kind of pro-China stance, perhaps influenced by business interests there.
Right. Tesla's presence.
And he even controversially intervened in the Russia-Ukraine war using Starlink, suggesting Ukraine should just cede territory.
Controversial is right. Okay, what about healthcare and education, those kitchen table issues?
Healthcare. The focus is very much on technocratic efficiency, cutting costs, targeting wasteful spending in Medicare, Medicaid.
Any specific proposals?
He's proposed making GLP-1 drugs, those weight loss drugs, super low cost, arguing it saves money long term. But he's also made statements suggesting big entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare, well, that they need to be eliminated.
Whoa, okay. That's a big statement. And education.
He's very critical of the public system, advocates a radical overhaul based on his own experimental school, Ad Astra.
What's different about that?
It throws out age-based grades, rote memorization. It's all project-based, heavy on STEM, heavy on tech, very different model.
So taking all these pieces together, what's their actual strategy? They're not trying to win the presidency first go, right?
No, definitely not. Their blueprint, as Musk has stated, is kingmaker, not king.
Kingmaker.
Yeah. They plan to laser focus on just 2 or 3 Senate seats and maybe 8 to 10 House districts in the 2026 midterms.
Just a handful.
The goal is to get a small but absolutely pivotal caucus in a Congress that's likely to be narrowly divided.
So they hold the balance of power.
Exactly, giving them decisive power over legislation. It's actually a pretty shrewd response to the huge barriers third parties face in the U.S. Go for immediate leverage, not broad governance right away.
Okay, but even with that strategy and Musk's billions, the sources say the America Party faces an electoral gauntlet. What are these systemic barriers they're up against?
Well, political scientist Jenna Bednar calls them nearly insurmountable organizational, institutional, and cultural barriers. It's a tough road.
Like what, specifically?
First, the big one. The winner-take-all electoral system, a first past the post. And something called Duverger's Law basically says this system mechanically pushes everything towards just 2 parties.
And psychologically.
It encourages that strategic voting we talked about.
Yeah.
People don't want to waste their vote on someone unlikely to win. The Electoral College just magnifies this effect at the presidential level.
Okay, so the voting system itself is a huge hurdle. What about the practical stuff? Getting on the ballot.
Oh, the ballot access labyrinth. It's this crazy state-by-state mess. You need tens, sometimes hundreds of thousands of signatures, strict deadlines. It's incredibly time-consuming and expensive.
Campaign finance.
Also skewed, major parties get public funding advantages. Third parties can only get it retroactively if they manage to pull 5% of the vote nationwide. It's a classic catch-22.
Right. And getting heard. Media coverage. Debates.
Media coverage is notoriously tough for third parties. They're often framed as spoilers or just not serious contenders. And the Commission on Presidential Debates requires 15% support in national polls to even get on the stage.
A very high bar.
Extremely high. And maybe the most insidious barrier, platform co-optation.
Meaning?
If a third party starts getting traction on a specific issue, what do the major parties do?
They adopt it themselves.
Exactly. They absorb the issue and poof, the third party's unique appeal vanishes.
But connecting this back, Musk's money and his ownership of X, that helps with some of this, right?
It definitely mitigates some things, yes. He can pour money into ballot access efforts. He can use X to bypass mainstream media filters.
But not everything.
No. He can't single-handedly change the winner-take-all rules. He can't just eliminate that deep-seated psychological pressure on voters to vote strategically. Those are still massive hurdles.
So given all these hurdles, how should we think about the spoiler effect? We hear that term constantly with third parties.
Right. The spoiler effect is basically when a minor candidate, like from a third party, draws votes away from a major candidate they're ideologically closer to.
Causing the major candidate they're less similar to win.
Precisely. But it's often misunderstood or maybe oversimplified. A closer look shows nuances.
Like the 1912 election.
That's the classic example. Theodore Roosevelt's Progressive Party split off from the Republicans. He clearly took votes from the incumbent Republican, Taft.
Allowing the Democrat, Woodrow Wilson, to win.
Yep. A clear case of spoiling the Republican chances.
But it's not always like that. What about Ross Perot in '92? People always say he spoiled it for Bush Sr.
Yeah, that's the popular story, but the consensus among analysts now refutes it.
Really?
Yeah. Exit polls actually showed Perot's voters, if forced to choose, slightly preferred Bill Clinton over George H.W. Bush.
So Clinton likely wins anyway.
Probably. It shows that a fiscally conservative third party doesn't automatically just pull from Republicans. They can attract a unique mix.
Okay, but then there's Ralph Nader in 2000.
Yes. That election was incredibly close, especially in Florida. Nader only got about 2.7% nationally, but in Florida.
It was enough.
It was enough. His voters preferred Gore over Bush, maybe 60-40. In a race decided by a few hundred votes, that small percentage was enough to tip the state, and therefore the presidency, to George W. Bush. A clear spoiler impact in a super tight race.
So applying this to the American Party,
hmm
what's the likely impact? Who do they spoil for, if anyone?
Well, all the evidence we have, particularly polling like that Quantus Insights poll from summer 2025, points towards it being an asymmetric spoiler.
Meaning,
Meaning it disproportionately hurts one side, in this case, the Republicans.
how so?
That poll found 40% of all voters would consider backing an America Party candidate. Okay, broad interest, but look closer.
Okay.
57% of Republican men express interest. Compare that to just 22% of Democratic men.
Wow, that's a huge gap.
It is, and it aligns perfectly with the party's origins in that feud with Trump and its platform fiscal conservatism, deregulation, anti-wokeism. It's polling from anti-establishment conservatives, libertarians, people unhappy with the current GOP.
So the bottom line is, in those districts they target, a three-way race. The America Party splits the right-of-center vote,
That's the most probable scenario, yes.
allowing the Democrat to win with just a plurality, not a majority.
Precisely. It looks a lot like 1912 again. The likely outcome is actually electing more Democrats in the specific places the American Party competes.
How ironic is that? A party founded on conservative principles.
Ends up being the Republican Party's spoiler for 2026. That seems to be the most likely trajectory based on the analysis.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Beyond just who wins or loses specific seats, what are the broader consequences if the America Party actually pulls it off, gets a few people elected? The sources talk about both positive and negative possibilities. Let's start with the optimistic view.
Sure. In the best-case scenario, maybe the America Party acts as a catalyst for positive change. A small, pivotal caucus in a really divided Congress.
Could break the gridlock.
Potentially. They could force bipartisan compromise on issues that have been stuck, like the national debt, maybe infrastructure, maybe even immigration reform.
And third parties sometimes introduce new ideas, right?
Absolutely. They have a history of being policy incubators.
Hmm.
Think about the populists pushing for the income tax or Ross Perot forcing the national debt onto the agenda. They can inject new issues into the mainstream.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. That power to break gridlock, it feels like a double-edged sword.
It definitely is.
What's the downside?
Yeah.
The negative potential.
Well, it could create a new kind of gridlock, potentially more volatile. In multi-party systems elsewhere, you sometimes see small parties making really extreme demands.
Holding the government hostage, essentially.
Kind of, leading to unstable coalitions, maybe even government collapse. Imagine an America Party caucus demanding, say, the complete abolition of a federal agency in return for voting on a budget.
So it raises the question, would they be pragmatic brokers or just ideological purists making impossible demands?
That's the key question, isn't it? We don't know.
Then there's the more pessimistic scenario laid out,
Yeah.
the party as a populist threat to democratic norms. How might that play out?
Well, the whole techno-populist nature of the party, which is so shaped by Musk himself, carries certain risks.
Like what?
Populist leaders often frame politics as this existential fight, right? The pure people versus a corrupt elite.
Which can justify attacking institutions.
Exactly. Attacking the judiciary, the media, established processes. Populists can also show a real impatience with the slow, messy business of democracy.
And Musk's rhetoric fits this.
Some of it does. The uniparty talk, his past criticisms of judges or the media, even the way free speech has been handled on X sometimes. These can be seen as characteristic of that populist tendency.
And what about the concern around unaccountable power? That feels very relevant here.
Extremely relevant. The research suggests Musk has already, in some ways, operated like a shadow U.S. president,
Meaning?
using his wealth, his platform, Starlink, to influence policy outside the normal accountable channels. Reports of him pressuring the White House on budget deals affecting his companies, intervening in foreign policy.
Without being elected or accountable to voters.
Precisely. And the America Party could become essentially an institutional vehicle for that kind of personalized, potentially unaccountable power.
So it raises a fundamental question for you, the listener, about democratic accountability.
Absolutely. Would these America Party legislators be primarily accountable to their constituents or to the billionaire founder who bankrolled their campaigns? It's a serious concern.
Okay, finally, let's look at a comparison people often make. Emmanuel Macron's En Marche movement in France, a successful new party in modern times. But the sources argue the America Party is actually the opposite of that model. Why? What's the key difference?
Yeah, stepping back, the Macron model is fundamentally different in almost every way.
How so?
Macron's campaign started with this huge bottom-up consultation called the Grand Marché. They went out and built a platform based on what citizens were concerned about.
So built from the ground up.
Exactly. Musk's approach.
Yeah.
Entirely top-down. It reflects his personal ideology, his vision. It wasn't built through consultation.
And the electoral system difference.
Crucial difference. France has a two-round system. Voters can cast a sincere vote for a new candidate in the first round, knowing they can make a more strategic choice in the second round if their first choice doesn't make it.
Giving new parties a chance to get heard without the immediate wasted vote fear.
Right. But the U.S. winner-take-all system, as we've discussed, severely punishes any vote that isn't for one of the two likely winners. There's no second chance.
So the very things that helped Macron win, they just don't exist in the U.S. context for Musk.
Pretty much entirely absent, yes. Macron built a new centrist coalition after the old parties basically collapsed. Musk is trying to fracture an existing, still powerful right-of-center coalition with what is effectively a personal political vehicle.
So the French comparison, when you dig into it, actually makes the America Party's path look even harder.
Ironically, yes. It strengthens the argument that the road to success for Musk's party is exceptionally narrow and really fraught with peril.
Okay, so let's try and sum all this up. Our deep dive into the America Party reveals it as this truly unique, very 21st century thing. A techno-populist vehicle, largely for its founders' interests and ideology, born out of genuine voter frustration, yes, but also really constrained by the very system it wants to disrupt.
And looking ahead, it seems highly unlikely to become, a permanent, co-equal third major party. That's just incredibly difficult.
So what's more likely?
It's probably poised to follow one of two familiar paths for third parties. Either it's a flash party, shines bright for an election cycle, or two, spoils some key races, forces issues onto the agenda, and then fades away as its ideas get absorbed by the majors. Or it becomes a kind of factional leverage group. It doesn't win much itself, but it influences, say, the Republican Party from the outside by constantly threatening spoiler candidacies or funding primary challengers against incumbents they don't like, more of an external pressure group.
This whole conversation, it really throws the structural problems of the American electoral system into sharp relief, doesn't it?
It really does.
You have this widespread desire among voters for more choice,
Clearly documented.
coupled with all these systemic barriers that basically prevent that choice from seriously emerging. It creates this cycle of frustration, alienation.
Yeah.
And this leads us to, I think, a really crucial final question for you, the listener, to think about. Does getting a more dynamic, maybe more responsive, multi-party democracy in the U.S., does it really need a billionaire benefactor to step in and try to force it?
Right.
Or will it ultimately require something more fundamental? A bottom-up movement pushing for systemic electoral reforms like, say, ranked choice voting, or proportional representation, things that might naturally allow more voices to emerge without needing a billionaire's bankroll.
That's the fundamental question, isn't it? Top-down disruption versus bottom-up reform.
That's definitely a provocative thought to leave you with, something to mull over as you think about the future of American politics. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you.